I've been thinking a lot about this whole self-love thing lately.
Oh, yeah.
It's like everyone's talking about it,
Right.
but it feels kind of elusive?
Yeah, I get that.
Like, where do you even begin with all this self-love stuff?
Well, it's definitely more of a journey than like a destination.
Okay.
And it's funny you mention that because there's this blog post I came across.
Mm.
It really digs deep into some practical techniques
Oh, cool.
for cultivating a self-love mindset.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's called
Uh-huh.
Journey to Self-Love, 12 Techniques to Cultivate a Self-Love Mindset.
Kitschy.
And it's from the blog talk, A Point of Light.
Okay, so this blog post is like our roadmap for this deep dive.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
One of the first things it tackles is this big misconception
Okay.
that self-love is all about
Yeah.
achieving some kind of external validation.
Like getting a promotion.
Exactly.
Or having tons of followers.
Yeah, like getting external things.
Yeah.
I fall into that trap sometimes.
It's easy to do. It's like, if I could just get that raise, then I'd finally feel good about myself.
But the blog, it really emphasizes
Yeah.
that true self-love, it's an inside job.
Mm.
It's about you recognizing your own worth,
Yeah.
regardless of what you achieve
Okay.
or what other people think.
I like that.
And it's so interesting how that internal shift
Yeah.
can actually improve your relationships with everyone else.
That makes sense.
Right.
If you don't value yourself, how can you expect others to?
That's exactly it.
Mm.
Healthy self-love, it sets a standard
Okay.
for how you expect to be treated.
Interesting.
It's like this ripple effect
Wow.
that influences all your interactions.
I see. Okay, so the blog makes a strong case for why self-love is important,
Right.
but then it asks this question that really resonated with me.
Mhm.
It says, why is self-love so hard?
It's a great question.
Why is it so hard?
Well, for one, there's all that societal pressure we face.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The goalposts, they're always moving for what success is.
Yeah.
And social media,
Right.
it often presents this unrealistic, airbrushed version of reality.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It really is.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up comparing yourself
Yeah.
and feeling like you don't measure up.
That's the worst.
And then on top of that,
Right.
the blog goes into how our past experiences, especially from childhood,
Yeah.
can totally shape how we see ourselves.
That's true.
Like those messages we hear growing up,
Totally.
they can stick with us and impact our self-esteem.
Absolutely. They can become these deep-seated beliefs that are hard to shake.
Wow. But the good news is,
Yeah.
once we become aware of these patterns,
Right?
we can start to challenge and reframe them.
You got it.
And that's where these techniques come in.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's dive into those.
Right.
What are some of the techniques that stood out to you?
Well, one that I think is really powerful is this idea of being okay with not being okay.
Ooh, I like that.
It's about accepting and processing those tough emotions
Okay.
rather than trying to avoid them or push them down.
I hear you. But I'm also a little wary of just like wallowing in negativity.
I get that.
How do you find that balance
Right.
between accepting your feelings and not letting them consume you?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's not about dwelling in the negativity,
Okay.
but allowing yourself to feel those emotions
Mm-hmm.
without judging them.
Oh, okay.
There are actually some techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy
Mm-hmm.
that can be really helpful here.
Like what?
Things like mindfulness meditation
Oh, yeah.
or even just journaling.
Oh.
These can help you observe those emotions
Right.
without getting totally swept away by them.
So it's more about acknowledging them,
Yeah.
understanding where they're coming from,
Yeah.
and then letting them go.
You got it. It's about creating a healthy distance
Mm.
between you and your emotions.
Mm.
And speaking of challenging those negative thoughts,
Yes.
the blog also talks about developing a more positive
Yeah.
and nurturing inner voice.
So like replacing those critical thoughts with more positive ones.
Exactly. It's a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, you have to become aware of that inner critic,
Right.
those negative thoughts that can sabotage your self-love.
Yeah.
Then you can start to challenge and reframe those thoughts.
With more realistic ones.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And there are some simple but effective techniques you can use,
Oh, cool. Like what?
like keeping a wins list.
A wins list.
Yeah, where you write down all your accomplishments,
Oh, I like that.
big or small.
I'm going to try that.
It's a great way to remind yourself of your strengths
Yeah.
and build up your self-confidence.
It's so easy to get bogged down in the negative
I know, right?
and forget about all the good stuff.
Exactly. And speaking of shifting your perspective,
Mm.
the blog also challenges you to redefine your definitions
Of.
of self-worth and success.
Wait, redefine them. How do you even do that?
It's about recognizing that your inherent value
Okay,
isn't tied to external achievements or societal metrics.
I see.
The blog encourages you to ask yourself,
Okay.
what does success truly mean to me?
Mm.
What brings me joy and fulfillment?
So it's about detaching from those external expectations
Exactly.
and aligning your goals with your own values.
You got it. And this ties into another important technique from the blog,
Which is,
ditching perfectionism.
ooh, that's a tough one.
It is.
I'm like a recovering perfectionist.
A lot of us are.
Yeah.
But the blog highlights how striving for perfection
Mm-hmm.
can actually be harmful to self-love.
Really?
It often stems from this need for external validation,
I can see that.
and it can lead to constantly feeling inadequate.
Yeah, when you're always striving for perfection,
Right.
you never feel good enough.
Exactly. And this can lead to a lot of self-criticism
Mm-hmm.
and negative self-talk.
So the blog encourages embracing imperfection as part of being human.
Exactly. It's about shifting your focus
Okay.
from external approval to internal satisfaction.
So letting go of the need to please everyone
Right.
and accepting that it's okay to make mistakes.
Exactly. And that leads us to another crucial aspect of self-love,
Okay, which is
forgiveness.
forgiveness, like forgiving yourself.
Yes. The blog emphasizes the importance of self-compassion
Mm.
and letting go of past mistakes.
It's hard to let go of those sometimes.
I know, but it suggests viewing mistakes as learning opportunities
Interesting.
rather than personal failings.
I like that. That's a good way to reframe it.
It is.
Instead of dwelling on the past,
Right.
you can use it as a stepping stone for growth.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
True.
And that's perfectly okay.
That's a good reminder
Yeah.
to hear.
Definitely.
It's funny, when we talk about self-love, we always seem to focus on our thoughts and feelings.
Right.
But this blog,
Yeah. Brings up something I hadn't thought about much before.
what's that?
Our bodies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting, isn't it?
It is.
We tend to either just take our bodies for granted
Yeah.
or criticize them.
Oh, yes.
But the blog, it makes this really compelling argument
Okay.
for being grateful for our physical selves.
I'll admit I've definitely spent way more time criticizing my body
Yeah,
than thanking it.
I get it.
So what kind of thinking shift does the
Mm.
blog suggest?
Well, it encourages you to think about all the incredible things your body does for you.
Okay.
It keeps your heart beating.
Right.
It allows you to experience the world through your senses.
True.
And it literally carries you through life.
When you put it that way,
Right.
it does seem pretty miraculous.
It is.
It's like we're walking around in these incredible vessels,
Yeah.
but we never really stop to appreciate them.
Exactly. And the blog even suggests
Yeah.
actually saying thank you to your body.
It might sound weird at first,
Yeah, a little
but
bit.
it can be really powerful
Okay.
for cultivating a sense of respect
Okay.
and appreciation.
I'm willing to try it.
Yeah,
It's like practicing gratitude for your body
exactly.
instead of always putting it down.
I love that.
And speaking of gratitude,
Yes.
there's another interesting point the blog makes.
Okay.
This idea of deciding whose opinions really matter.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is, right?
It
I
is.
still struggle with that.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in wanting validation from others.
I know.
But the blog reminds us
Yeah.
that we have the power to choose whose opinions we actually prioritize.
It's like taking back control
Yes.
of your self-worth
Exactly.
instead of letting it be controlled by outside forces.
That's it.
And, from an evolutionary perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense why we want to be accepted.
Right.
Back in the day,
Yeah,
being part of a group meant survival.
exactly.
But today, we
Yeah.
have more freedom to choose who we spend time with.
And whose opinions we value.
So it's about being more mindful
Yeah.
about where we look for that validation.
Exactly. And this ties back to self-love.
Yeah.
Because when you truly value yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're not as dependent on what other people think.
Interesting.
You start making choices based on what feels right to you,
Right.
not what you think will impress others.
That's a big shift in thinking.
It is.
And I think it leads us to
Yeah.
what the blog calls the ultimate goal of self-love,
Which is,
making it part of your identity.
that's right. It's about reaching that point
Okay.
where your sense of worth comes from inside,
Mm-hmm.
not from outside sources.
So it's not something you have to constantly work at.
Right.
It just becomes a part of who you are.
Exactly. And the blog says it so well.
How do they put it?
When self-love becomes part of your identity,
Yeah.
it says you stop looking outward for approval and validation.
Mm.
You won't need someone else to tell you you're worthy of love,
Right.
success, or happiness because it will just be part of who you are.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
It's like self-love becomes this foundation
Yeah.
that guides you.
And shapes your experiences.
We've covered so much.
I have.
But there's this one technique from the blog I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on.
Okay.
It's a classic one.
What is it?
Writing a things I love about me list.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever tried that?
Absolutely. It's such a simple but effective way
Mm-hmm.
to cultivate self-appreciation.
It's like taking the time
Yeah.
to acknowledge all those great qualities you have.
Exactly. Big and small.
It's like giving yourself a pep talk,
It is.
reminding yourself of all the things that
Mhm.
make you unique.
Yeah, awesome.
And the blog encourages you to do this regularly.
It does.
It's about actively choosing
Yes.
to focus on your positive side.
I love that. And I think that's a great takeaway from all of this.
What is?
Self-love isn't about this perfect state of bliss.
All right.
It's about making the effort to treat yourself with kindness.
And compassion.
Exactly.
It's about choosing yourself,
Yes.
honoring your needs,
Mm-hmm.
and embracing your authentic self.
Beautiful.
It strikes me that so many of these techniques,
Yeah,
they're all about changing how we talk to ourselves,
Well, go
maybe
ahead.
from self-criticism to self-love.
absolutely.
Almost like we're retraining our brains to
Yeah.
focus on what's good.
That's a great observation.
Thanks.
And it really shows the power of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we often get so caught up in everything
Oh, yeah.
that we don't even realize how mean that inner critic can be.
Ugh, so true.
And these techniques,
Yeah.
they help us slow down, pay attention to our thoughts,
Okay.
and consciously choose a more loving inner voice.
So it's not just about feeling good.
Right.
It's about creating a more supportive space in our minds.
Exactly. And the more we do these techniques, the
Yeah.
more natural they become.
Okay.
Self-love starts to feel less like a chore
Yeah.
and more like just how we live.
That's a great way to put it.
I think so too.
It's less about forcing it and more about just being.
Yeah, and I think that's really empowering
Okay.
for anyone struggling with self-love.
You know what way?
It's not about reaching some perfect ideal.
Right.
It's about those small, consistent choices that nourish you.
This deep dive has been so insightful.
Oh, good. Bye.
I feel like I have a whole new outlook on self-love
I like that.
and like a toolbox full of techniques to try.
The key is finding what really works for you.
Right, because not everything will resonate with everyone.
Exactly. So experiment and see what feels right.
Find your own path.
Exactly.
And be patient with yourself.
Yes, self-love is a journey, not a destination.
We always say that.
For a reason.
There will be ups and downs along the way,
That's life.
but just keep moving forward.
With kindness and compassion.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive
Mhm.
into this journey to self-love,
Right.
what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Well, first, I hope they remember that self-love is an inside job.
Okay.
It begins by recognizing your inherent worth,
Yeah.
no matter what you achieve or what anyone else thinks.
And it's not about being perfect at self-love. It's
Yeah.
about constantly choosing to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. And I hope they try out some of the techniques we've discussed.
Yeah, those were good.
Like keeping a wins list or challenging that inner critic.
Or thanking their amazing bodies.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And to remember that self-love isn't selfish.
Definitely not.
It's crucial
Yes.
for all healthy relationships.
Oh, true.
With yourself and with everyone else.
Beautifully said. And remember,
Yeah.
it's a journey, not a destination.
Always.
Be patient with yourself. Celebrate how far you've come.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep exploring this amazing world of self-discovery.
This has been such a great conversation.
Oh, thanks. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into self-love. It's been fun. We hope you're leaving feeling inspired and empowered to embrace your true selves.
You got this.
Remember, you're worthy of love, starting with the love you give to yourselves.